All right.
Again?
Yeah, to whomever's taking it.
Yeah, I don't know who it goes.
So we are moving forward. I did want to stop for just a moment and ask, because last week was kind of a large topic. There was a lot of stuff in there, and so I didn't know if there were any residual questions or thoughts from honoring father and mother from last week that maybe didn't get answered or anything. I don't want to close the door if there were some other things that wanted to be asked. Okay. So we're on to word 6. Can someone tell me what word 6 is?
Murder.
I think it's actually not to murder. But
People aren't moving out of their house and her husband has a lot of stuff.
I think we're going to be on this a while.
Totally teasing. Not really.
did we hit our button? Just making sure. All right.
You're live.
Sorry.
So we've gotten out. I was telling Forrest, with the 2 tablets, stone tablets, there is a lot of conjecture as to what was written on what exactly. Some people feel like it was 5 and 5. Some feel like it was probably more 4 and 6, because 4 is dealing with how we deal with God, the other 6 are how we deal with each other. And then there's some conjecture that that whole idea is not accurate either, that there would have been 10 on each tablet, so that one could have been passed around even, perhaps, and the other one kept for safekeeping. But we have moved into the set of commandments or 10 words, or the section of the words that are definitely dealing in how we look and how we treat other people. Yes?
What if it was printed on both sides?
You know what? I have often wondered if they had that, double-sided copy type of function back
In color.
at that point. In color, perhaps. Yeah.
That's a good printer.
So the verbiage says, and remember that the whole overarching message of the Decalogue is, trust me because I am gifting you with life. That means you do not need to take life on your own, to grab life for yourselves, because you end up stealing it from others. So, we kind of are getting to one that it almost seems like it would be, in some ways, the very first thing. Seems like the one that is the most obvious, I would think. Thou shalt not, if we're going to go back to the King James language, thou shalt not kill, or thou shalt not murder. Now, I will tell you that it is amazing, I'm going to shut this, amazing how many different directions, how many different topics this touches on. Let me tell you just a little bit about the word for kill itself. As you begin to think about some of the things that this might touch on, I think that's your first question, is what are the different things that this could touch on? The word, it's difficult because there are 2 different interpretations of this word, and therefore the definition of this word kind of is a little amorphous, is a little hard to pin down. The word can be thought of and as a word kill, as in just any killing at all. And that would be translated, thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not murder leans more into the understanding of intentional killing. Of killing because I'm doing it for a reason. I got something against you and need you out of the way for whatever reason that is. It does not help us to nail this down that the word in the Hebrew used for this seems to have changed in its use as time went along.
Oh, but that do not kill.
Uh-huh.
It don't say a person. It's just do not kill. That's period. Anybody. Anything.
Well, I would say that this, being that we are talking about how we treat other people with the rest of them, that this is mainly directed. We can have a conversation about killing other things, but I think this is mainly directed at human beings. And it takes us back to the very beginning. Again, it's amazing how even in the Old Testament, it points us back to even earlier in the Old Testament. It takes us back to the idea that humans are created in the image of God. And perhaps it's not even, when we think of image, a lot of times we think of things that we paint or carve or draw, and so we think almost physicality. But we don't really think, being that God is spirit, we don't really think of ourselves as, God having, my shape of nose or my color of hair. It's about character. And in some ways, it's about the idea of life itself. Because we're not only created in the image of God, we were made to live by the very breath of God. And so, I think what the writer here is trying to get across to us is to understand how precious life is. And then that sends us in all different kinds of directions. So let's think about. Well, let me give you just a little bit more information. So it also can refer, if we look at like Deuteronomy, it can also refer to unintentional killing. So that earlier understanding of kill versus murder. There are rules that we have in other pieces of Scripture. Actually, in the next chapter, there are some rules that go along with how killing happens and what are the ramifications. What are the rules that go along with that? Does anybody happen to have a Bible handy?
Where to see?
Would you look up Exodus 21? Let's go to, I think it's 12.
Yes. Anyone who strikes a man and kills him shall surely be put to death. However, if he does not do it intentionally, but God lets it happen, he is to flee to a place I will designate. But if a man schemes and kills another man deliberately, take him away from my altar and put him to death.
Okay. So, we're talking about the consequences or the punishment for killing. I'm just going to read the next couple of lines. Because it's really easy for us to go, well, yeah, that makes sense. You kill one person, your life should be taken. Let me read the next part.
Yeah.
Whoever strikes mother or father shall be put to death. Sabrina.
I've never hit you.
Whoever kidnaps a person, whether that person has been sold or is still in possession, shall be put to death. Whoever curses father or mother shall be put to death. I don't know about y'all, but it's always been an interesting thing to me when I see parents, and okay, this is my opinion. I've always found it interesting when we were out and we would see parents with kids, and one kid would hit another kid, hit their sister or their brother, and the parent would see that, come up to the child, and on the side of the head go, "We don't hit."
Yeah.
Do you see the
Sounds like me on a cat.
irony there?
You can't hit your brother.
Yes.
That's like, do as I say, not as I do.
Yes. Very much so. So let me give you some of the topics that I believe that this touches on. Well, actually, why don't y'all give me some that you might be thinking of? What topics today do you think this speaks to or would want to speak to?
Pacifism.
I'm sorry, what was
Pacifism.
pacifism? Okay. Self-defense. Anybody else?
War.
War, which kind of goes with pacifism. We'll put that up there.
There's always going to be war as long as there's human beings.
Okay. Did I see another one? Yes.
Corporal punishment.
Corporal punishment. Interesting.
Sorry about Cain and Abel.
I'm gonna put capital as well.
Say someone else?
Okay. I'm gonna put. Let's see. Save others. Okay. That actually probably would lean into possibilities of war for just war itself. Yes.
Destruction of character.
Okay. So I'm going to put a limit on this because we are going to lean into, what's a good word way of putting this? So Rick is bringing up about like killing someone's character. Okay, we're not going to go there today
Defamation.
because we're not going to go there today. Don't make me throw my eraser. That is going to be something another word is going to speak to, so I don't want to jump ahead, all right? So we're going to stick to literally physicality, physical death, this physical killing today, okay?
Moses had first-hand experience.
I'm sorry?
Moses had first-hand
Moses
experience.
did have first-hand experience. Any other topic that you think this might touch on, lean into?
Killing of animals.
Animals, okay. I will put up
Hunting.
animals / hunting.
Well, if you're gonna put animals in hunting, don't you have to put in their whole system of sacrifice?
Sacrificial system, I will just put that, all right.
What about abortion?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, could you give me anything like more divisive?
Yeah.
Try. Exactly.
Abortion, anything else?
Euphemism?
I'm sorry?
Euthanasia.
Euthanasia? Sorry.
Euthanasia. See, I never understood what children in Japan had to do with that. Euthanasia? I really never understood that. When I was a teenager, no, seriously, when I was a teenager, that's what I thought they were talking about. This big topic about children over in the Orient, I did not understand. Until I got a little older and then I understood. All right.
That's when you got the slap on the back of the head.
I think that is spelled correctly.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Not that this isn't enough. All right.
Now, what about accidents? Like if you accidentally,
Okay, so we're going to make, so let's just say for instance, manslaughter.
We're gonna be here a while.
Because that is more the typical law term, even in scripture, for an unintentional killing. I killed a man, I slaughtered a man. It wasn't intentional, it wasn't murder, it was manslaughter. We still use that term in courts today. All right. So, I think we have to think about what constitutes a murder in the biblical sense. Is to murder simply to kill someone in defense of one's country or one's home, even if it's under attack? There are those who have conscientiously concluded that it is. Is it murder to have an abortion, even if the mother's life or health is threatened? There are those who think it is. Is it murder to terminate the life of a person by withholding life support, even in the face of that person's intense suffering and inevitability of death? Again, there are those who have decided that it is. There are many who believe that there can be a just war, that abortion is permissible to save the life or health of the mother, that even the mercy of the fifth commandment about honoring father and mother, the idea of valuing those lives at that end of life, that would even be something that would be used to talk about not having to make someone suffer unnecessarily at the end of their life. And then we get into ideas about technology and trying to artificially extend the life. What are we going to say when we get to the point, if we do get to the point, but the way technology is moving forward, have you ever thought about how we're going to think as the church, as the body of Christ, when it becomes possible to put a brain into an artificial body? And how long that may extend life. And then what about that body, which isn't a real body but contains a real, I mean, there's so many directions with the way future is headed that is going to become a part of this conversation.
Would they have a soul?
And how in the world would we ever come to an understanding of yes or no on that? There's a lot of gray area here that we wish was more black and white. We wish was easier for us, in some ways, for us to feel better about how we think. Unfortunately, for many, it's about wanting to have a concrete way of telling other people what they can and can't do, or should or shouldn't do. because for some reason human beings really like that. So then we get into even more difficult waters because Jesus doesn't even leave it there, does he? We look at the Old Testament and we look about the way they seemed to value life, and yet you look at some of the other things in the Old Testament mindset and it doesn't seem like they value life at all. I'm curious, have you ever thought, do you remember where it says, okay, so we're going to do it this way. We're going to do an eye for an eye, a hand for a hand, a foot for a foot, and a life for a life. Let's take the life for a life out of it for just a minute. Would you feel that it was a good thing to do, a godly, Christ-like thing to do, if we enforced those other laws?
The Sadducees believed that.
Yeah, I'm not asking about Sadducees. I'm asking about y'all. What is y'all's inclination there? Do y'all think if someone put someone's eye out, that it's like, okay, come over here, let me get my scissors? If someone ran over your child's hand and it was taken off, would it be the righteous thing to do to say, okay, come over here, let me get my saw? And yet, we typically lean into the idea that the last one of a life for a life seems to make more sense to us. I'm going to save the story for a minute. Actually, I'm going to tell you the story. So there's a movie. I will just warn you that it is a somewhat, it's called In the Line of Fire. It is a movie that has two amazing actors. John Malkovich, for those of you that have ever seen him in a movie, he plays the bad guy. And he is incredibly good at playing a bad guy. In fact, my wife, after seeing this movie, never wanted to see John Malkovich in a movie ever again.
True.
In fact, I often tease when I see he's going to be in a movie. I'm like, oh, your favorite actor's in this movie. He is the bad guy. He is playing a character who was a former CIA assassin who has some anger management problems. And he has decided that he is going to kill the president. On the other side, you have Clint Eastwood. And he is playing the oldest Secret Service agent in history. He supposedly was riding on the bumper of JFK when he was assassinated. And so he's been living with this failure for all these years. And he has asked, because he has realized that this guy is going to try to make an attempt, and he's asked, he wants to redeem himself. He said, I want to be on the president's detail. And there is a scene where he and his partner are chasing Malkovich's character. And they're chasing him over these rooftops, and they're jumping from building to building. Leary is in much better shape than Clint Eastwood. All right, Leary is Malkovich's character. Malkovich is in much better shape than Eastwood. And so Malkovich clears this jumping from one building to the next, and Clint says, I got to go after him. He jumps. He doesn't quite make it. He grabs the edge of the building. He's holding on for dear life. you're sitting there, the tension is building, and you, oh my goodness, is he going to fall? Or are we going to lose him halfway through the film? Because that's happened in other films before, and I'm worried because I want him to live, and I want to see what he's going to do. And all of a sudden, from the edge of the building, with sunglasses and a hat on, looking with the Malkovich scary face, Malkovich leans over and looks down at him. And Malkovich reaches over and he says, "Take my hand or you'll die." Come on. Take it. Eastwood lets go of one hand that's holding on to the edge of the roof, grabs his hand. Malkovich holds on, starts to pull him up, and Eastwood reaches down, grabs his gun, and points it in Malkovich's face. Do you see the irony of this moment? And Malkovich says, "Are you going to shoot me? After I've just saved your life? Really?" And he pauses, and you have this interesting dilemma, this interesting situation where this person who they're after, who is a killer, he is willing, he sees, at least in this instance, that this life is precious to him and is willing to save his life. The good guy, in the midst of being saved, decides, "I think I need to shoot him." And then Malkovich says something. He says, "You know, actually, if you're going to save the president for sure, you'll have to shoot me. Are you willing to trade your life for the president's? Or is life too precious?" And then symbolically, and I until I went back today, I don't really think I caught the symbolism here. Malkovich, with the gun in his face, leans down, grasps the gun in his mouth, and then throws Eastwood to safety. And in my head, I'd never thought it before as I'm watching this movie, and it's one of my favorite movies. It's a great movie. I never thought it before, but in my head I'm hearing, "No greater love hath anyone than he lay down his life for a friend." And that symbolic gesture of putting that gun in his mouth is saying, "I'm willing to die for you." Crazy. Crazy all the different direction that takes. That the writers weren't willing to allow you just to think about Eastwood and Malkovich and where they're both coming from. But then they add in the whole idea of the president. And the idea, and I think in some ways all of this is circling around the idea of what life is actually more precious than another. Do we see that this person over here, because of the life they've lived, that their actual living and breathing is less precious, less valuable than this person over here who's lived a great life? That this person over here who is working a job and making six figures, that their life, that their breathing is more precious than this person over here who, and pardon me for saying it because I know what room I'm in, but this person over here who's 85 and retired and not doing anything. Or is this person here who is 30, who is 25, or 6, however old, doesn't matter, that their life is more or less precious than the baby who is growing in the womb? I think a lot of what this comes down to is our desire or our determination to say that one life is more precious than another. And it's difficult, especially in the society that we are in, because we have changed justice into something that it is not in the Bible. It is not in Christianity. I'm going to deal with the death penalty here real quickly. I, again, will say, this is my opinion, but I believe this is an informed opinion. I had a kid that I was teaching, substituting in for my daughter's high school for Bible class several years ago. And I opened it up to questions and answers. If you've ever done that with a group of juniors and sophomores and just said any question is open, you will realize how big a risk that really is. And one of the questions I got during that Q&A was about the death penalty. One of the young men said, well, if someone kills another person, they should get the death penalty, right? And I stepped back and I said, okay, well, let's just try to think about this for just a minute. You're saying that if one person kills another person, kind of, I guess, leaving the circumstances of how that came about out of it, but your feeling is that that person should definitely get the maximum penalty, he should get the death penalty. Yes. Okay. So, let me change the situation just a little bit. Let's leave everything the way it is, but let's make this person who did the killing, let's not make it a generic person anymore. Let's make it your mom. Your mom killed this person. Are you going to want the judge to give her the stiffest penalty there is and to give her the death penalty, or would you want the judge to be more lenient with your mom in his sentencing? He looked at me as though I were crazy and said, well, of course I want her to I want him to be lenient with her. And I said, well, I don't understand. Why would you want that? He said, well, duh. She's my mom. I said, oh, okay, so you love your mom. And therefore you would want her to get less of a penalty. You'd want him to be lenient with her because you love her. He's like, well, yeah. I said, okay. I said, I wonder, do you think Jesus telling us that we're supposed to love every person, even our enemies, might speak into this at all? Could it be that we choose, again, because she's my mom and not some other faceless person, my mom, someone else I don't know, that I see her life as more precious than this person over here? Does that sound right? Does that sound like... Okay. Does that sound like a direction that makes sense of what Jesus calls us to? I realize we're getting into political things here, but this is very, very much what Jesus teaches us of how we are to be like him is to love others the way he loves us. Justice has changed in our country because we think about people getting what they've, well, we say what they deserve. It's really what they've earned. We want them to get the punishment we think they've earned. But that's not what justice is in the Bible. Justice isn't about getting what we've earned. It's about things being set right. I'll give you, for instance, this very rarely happens. You'll see it every once in a while. But back many years ago, there was a young man who came in and shot up a church service. I believe it was an Amish church service, if I recall correctly. And at the sentencing, the whole community came to the sentencing of the young man. And after the judge had declared that he would be in prison for the rest of his life, there were no cheers from that community. There was no applause from that community. That community got up and surrounded that young man, and they hugged him and they embraced him and they said, "We forgive you. We do not hold this against you. And we will be here for you every time we possibly can. Whatever you need, you let us know and we will bring it. Whenever you are alone, you feel lonely, let us know. We will come visit. You belong to us." Guys, that is the scriptural understanding of justice. Things being set right relationally. There is no way, when injuries come along, for those things to be paid off in a way that is going to be somehow balancing. There's no way if someone accidentally runs down my child, that could ever be balanced out by trying to take something away from someone else. Punishment does not bring justice. It never has. And it never will. I'll pause for a minute and talk a little while. Any comments, questions about that?
Well, as you know, I have talked with you a lot about this, and I do believe there needs to be a high law of the land.
Sure.
Like, there needs to be something to get people who are inclined to do terrible things to not, because they could die.
Sure.
So.
But why would life in prison not be just as much a deterrent?
Well, maybe it's just all the movies, but life in prison doesn't seem...
I would be willing to say that unless you've spent any time in prison.
True.
Because we've known some people that have spent time in prison. Yes?
Several years back, quite a few years ago, they did away with capital punishment in Indiana.
Yes.
And they killed 3 or 4 state troopers. So then they reenacted it. They said we can't have it.
What do we all... Yes, Joyce, go ahead.
I remember when we were growing up back way in the hills of Kentucky, my really maiden aunt would say, well, he needed a good killing anyway. Because he was so mean, the guy was so mean and vicious, they could not see a point in him getting any better.
Mm-hmm.
So that was their way of thinking.
Right.
You know?
So there's no way... Oh, man. So basically, there's no way God would be able to do anything in that person's life to change them. So we might as well just do away with them. And that's kind of what that sounds like. What do we ultimately want for people who we feel like are bad people? And I'm just going to use that in quotes.
The worst.
Right.
of whatever.
Whatever it is, it's like, okay, that's my enemy. That's the guy I think's bad. Let's just go ahead and do as bad as we can, and hopefully that will change them, or they just won't be a problem anymore. But what do we want for us?
The best.
We want the most lenient. We want the most, or someone we know. We want the most lenient. Oh, don't give them the death penalty. Give them, 6 months.
Well, that's just hypocritical. That's just plain hypocritical.
It is, but I think the question becomes, if we're going to, I absolutely agree, it is absolutely hypocritical, but I think the question becomes that if we're not going to be hypocritical in those situations, where are we going to say, this is where I'll stand, not only for myself, but for others? What do we ultimately want for people, guys? We want them to come to know Jesus. Right? Isn't that what we ultimately want for people? Isn't that the thing that's actually going to transform and change people? Is that they will come to know Jesus. What option are we taking away? And again, I'm stepping back into me now. Are we taking away years of possibility for God to work by saying, we're not going to give you life in prison, we're going to take your life?
I say no. And I say emphatically no, because you're limiting God to time. And God is not limited by time. And if God is going to work in someone's life, He will do it.
But now, are you saying that they don't have any free will?
I am not saying that.
Okay. Because I think free will takes precedent. How many times have you known someone in your life that you were trying to help them, and they were stubborn, and you tried to get through to them, and it took months or years until finally their eyes were open and they were like, oh, okay, now I see. You actually aren't being mean to me. You're actually trying to love me, and I just didn't want it. Have you ever had somebody that you've tried to love that's reacted in a way that's actually opposite from what you're trying to do? They take it as though you're being mean.
Yes.
Have you ever had that happen?
Oh.
But then finally, at some point, they're like, oh, man, they've been loving me this entire time. Why couldn't I see that? And it took time. Were you clearing your throat to say something? Cain kills Abel. This is the first murder. And why? Jealous. And really, what is he jealous of? He's jealous of God's attention to his brother. He's jealous that God sees his brother's offering as more acceptable than his. Yes?
That's what you said.
Yes.
God accepted his offering.
And it wasn't because of what was offered. It was because of the attitude in which they were offered, it appears. And Cain's like, I can't deal with that. And so he takes his brother, invites him out to the field, and however he does it, we do not know, he kills his brother. This is the first instance in Scripture of a murder. And what does God do? Even back here, even with this Old Testament concept of God, what is God's response to Cain? It's not to kill him. It's not to say, okay, well, this is what you deserve, or this is what you've earned. He questions him, why? Why would you do this? Do you realize that the life of your brother is precious? That the life essence, which is what he talks about when he's talking about blood, right? It's not about liquid in the veins. It's literally trying to say the thing that runs through your body that supplies you with life. It's calling out to me. And Cain realizes the consequences of what the rest of his life is probably going to look like. People will know. People will know about it. They're going to try to take my life. They're going to try to seek retribution. They're going to try to seek vengeance. Now, where did all these other people come from? I don't know.
That's the thing I've always wondered.
Yes.
When Cain is vanquished from the
Well,
Garden of Eden, who's this person he mates with?
Yes, we can get into all that. That is a whole other tangent.
But, you know, the Bible doesn't say where the other being came from.
No. Guys, I think for me what I want to say is I want to lean into the understanding that this isn't just about saying don't kill. It is saying embrace life. Jesus is trying to push us into the positive side of this and to say value life so much. Because God doesn't kill Cain, he actually puts a mark on his head so that he won't be killed. And he continues to be in relationship with Cain as much as Cain will allow him to be. Jesus leans into the idea that it's not even just my physical actions towards other people, but it's my heart intention to other people. That I can value my life more than yours simply with my attitude. I can devalue your life just with my intention and my attitude. And so each one of these things that we've written up here, I know I've kind of specifically went with capital punishment today, but each one of these other things that are up here, how would taking this extreme positive position of embracing the preciousness of life, of every single person, how would that impact the way we look at this, or these different things? How would that impact the way we would treat others who are dealing with some of these issues? Would our attitude, which leads to our actions, be something that would be speaking Jesus and love into these situations? Or would people be feeling like in some way we are devaluing someone's life? Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, I know Jesus wouldn't put somebody in the electric chair or whatever. Obviously, I think we can agree on that. My only thing with the capital punishment thing is, you know, what if they're a murderer or something, you bring them to prison.
Yep.
And then they kill somebody else in prison, another inmate or a guard or something.
Mm-hmm.
You could have stopped that if you would have taken that person's life. Or worse, what if they get out and kill somebody else? Is that loving to just let a murderer keep killing people? But I know we can't look into the future and see if they're going to kill somebody else, but it's just like, and I know Jesus wouldn't put them in the kill them either, so it's like, I don't know.
You look at statistics, and when these people are let out, they do it again, often.
Well, and I am not advocating for letting people out
Yeah.
in any way. Yes.
You have to draw the line somewhere. If you let enough people get by without paying the price for the crime they committed, well, that crime is just going to be more people going to keep doing it.
Oh my gosh, and listen to me. Let me say this out loud. I am not saying, do not hear me advocating for just allowing people to get away with things.
I know that.
Not at all. All I'm asking is keeping someone locked up to where they can't hurt anybody else. is that a more life-embracing way of thinking about it than saying we've got to end someone's life?
You mean, is that the same thing? Is that what you're saying?
I'm asking if allowing someone to continue to live and yet putting them in prison to keep them from harming anybody else, if that is a more life-embracing way of thinking and doing things than saying we must take someone's life.
Like Nikki was saying, they kill each other in prison too.
Not solitary.
So my question is that loving to not, I don't know, not kill that person so they won't kill somebody else?
Would it be loving for, and I'm gonna end with this because I need to go, and I'm happy to continue talking about this next week. Apparently we're going to be through.
We didn't even talk about war.
Yes, we haven't gotten to war, and that's even more difficult to get through. Would it be loving for us to go back in history and kill Hitler as a child?
I don't know. I don't know. It's a hard question.
Would it? Let me put it differently. Would it be Christ-like? I think that answer is really easy. Loving, perhaps not, because we want to change our definition of loving. Christ-like, I think, where it's a little easier answer.
Yeah, if you can see in the future, I don't know. Obviously, sure, you can kill a baby duck, but
Right.
I don't know. That's a good question.
All right, guys. There are a lot of hard things, and like I said, I'm not saying. That's why I'm asking questions, and I'll tell you where I'm at, but I'm not saying where you have to be, because these are hard. There's not a black and white in most of these, but the issue is when things get gray, we typically don't want to think about them because they're difficult. But I think we have to, because we are going to find ourselves in positions maybe where we're not dealing with ourselves, but someone else we know is. And how are we going to be? How are we going to be Jesus in those situations for people? All right, let me pray. Father, in the midst of very difficult conversations and very difficult topics, help us to listen and see the example that Jesus gave in his life and in his death and in his resurrection. Let us hold on to those things even in difficult times and conversations. And in the end, help us to hold on to those things even when we don't find ourselves on one side or another, but we feel like we're in the middle. Sometimes that's where we need to be because that's where you're standing. We'll praise you for who you are because that is what guides who we want to be. And we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Okay, everybody, this snack one that went around.